I am in a slump. I'm in a real reading rut. We've all been there, struggling to pick up the book, struggling to get into them when you do. Happens to all of us, happened to me. I'll get over it, it'll be fine. But I did actually still manage to get quite a few books read this month, but I also DNF'd 4 books. Let's jump right in. First off, the books that I did read. Of them, none of them I found outstanding. Starting with what I think was probably the best book I read this month was Iron Gold by Pierce Brown, book 4 in the Red Rising series. And while this book I thought was mostly fine, and I'm going to avoid spoilers here because it would be very easy to spoil events of the previous 3 books while talking about this one, so I'm going to be quite vague. So yeah, while I enjoyed the book, the writing was fine, I still liked the characters, it came across very clear that there wasn't a planned 4th book. For example, there's several points in the book where it's clear that there's a character being set up, or there's some reveal coming, that you're led to believe is something you're going to know, and you're like, oh, which character or thing from the past few books is this going to be? And then it happens, and it's just some new character you've never met before, and then you're just told that they're this super important person. And it's like, okay, cool. But if we were going to do this, then shouldn't we have left some of the characters from book 3 around to fill these roles and that sort of thing? And so that was just a bit frustrating. I did really like what happened here. I did quite like most of the story arcs. The main story arc is probably my least favorite, but the other 2 are really good. I'll probably do a full review of this so I can actually talk about it properly with spoilers. But I think it did do a good job of setting up the new characters and the new setting and everything that we need to keep going with the series. So while this is probably my least favorite of the series so far, I'm really excited to read Dark Age. So yeah, Iron Gold gets a 3 stars from me. It was fine, but not outstanding. Up next, I read book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of The Expanse by James S.A. Corey, Babylon's Ashes. And this book was, again, fine. Not my least favorite in The Expanse. Not my favorite in The Expanse. Overall, again, being vague because this is book 6 and I don't want to do any spoilers, the kind of arc that we're in and wrapping up in this book, and that's been going on for the last 2 books, I want to say, isn't ever really gripped me. We've got some new characters that I don't really care for. We've left behind some of the stuff I really enjoyed about The Expanse. A lot of the proto-molecule stuff seems to not be that important right now. Mostly about this book, I'm just kind of glad that this arc has been wrapped up, and it was fine. I've got no major complaints. Overall, again, probably a 3 stars. Now we get to a book that I really thought I was going to like a lot more than I did, and that is On Basilisk Station by David Weber. This is the first of his ℚ𝕚𝕚𝕚 books, which is kind of like Horatio Hornblower, but in space, right? And it was a bit disappointing, actually. Mostly the characters felt very bland to me. Most of the book seemed to be just characters explaining things to other characters. Like, something would happen, and then we'd have a character on the bridge explain that to Honor, and then Honor would explain that to the governor. And we just kind of repeated things quite a lot there. Also, I've got a problem with kind of the core concept that, things were being run really shoddily here. So Honor Harrington comes in, kind of gets tricked into being here, and then starts running things really well. But then it goes on to show how, everyone on the cruise and even the captain's super happy because they make a bunch of money by doing things well, because when you confiscate contraband and whatnot, you get a cut of it. And so everyone's making a shitload of money. And so why would the other captains, even if they were lazy, not just do even a half-assed job and make a bunch of money? But that's fine, that's not a big deal. The writing is, I would say, meandering. At one point, we're in this, high-speed space pursuit for, very near the climax of the book. This is a very big pivotal moment with a lot at stake. And then we take, a 10-page break to talk about, hyperdrive systems, which I get was probably important for the state that we were at in the chase, but it probably should have been explained earlier so we didn't just interrupt the flow of everything. And I think a large reason why this book didn't land for me was I did it via audiobook, and normally that's fine for me. Normally I don't have a problem, but for this one, the author put on these real thick accents for a lot of the characters that just made them sound cartoonish and dumb, which was a big problem. So I think I will continue reading the series, but I'm definitely going to read it physically rather than listening to the audiobook, because yeah, that didn't work for me at all. On Basilisk Station gets a 2 stars from me because yeah, I just really didn't enjoy it. And then we've got a book that might just be that sort of perfect half grade mark, you know? Martha Wells is the author of the Murderbot Diaries books, which I adore, and there is a TV show out now, which I haven't started watching. Let me know in the comments if you guys have. How is it? Is it good? Does it hold up? But one of her older books is City of Bones, and it really did interest me. and I don't have a lot to complain about, but I don't have a lot to really praise either. It's kind of like perfect middle way point. It was perfectly serviceable, but this book felt just a little bit lacking. Probably the most interesting part of this book to me was the idea of the wastes, this area, this desert that used to be a sea that is like split into multiple levels, has really weird ecology in it, and sounds really interesting, has weird animals, had weird predators and whatnot, has pirates in it. And that sounds amazing. I was so in for that. But we only spend like 5% of the book in the wastes, and we really don't explore it at all. It's just kind of a way to get from point A to point B. We just go through it every now and then. And so that really disappointed me. The city itself is fine, is interesting. I wanted to say here that the characters were really good, but I read this book a few weeks ago and I can't remember the name of one character. Can't remember any character name, so that's not great. This book is just like a perfect 2.5 stars, right? Like if we're rating out of 10, it's like the perfect 5. There's nothing I've really got to complain about here. There's nothing I'm really super excited to talk about here. The book was fine. I did enjoy it. Took me a while to get through because I wasn't super enjoying the book, but I did get through it and I'm glad I read it. That's about as good a review as I can give right now, I think. And finally, yes, I did DNF 4 books. Of those 4, I'm only going to talk about 2 of them today because the other 2 are these like tiny indie books, you know, the sort with like 1 or 2 reviews on Amazon, like 0 ratings on Goodreads. And I'm thinking maybe it was just my headspace, the fact that I'm in this like slump, this reading rut, that these weren't the books to get me out of that. These weren't the exciting, exhilarating, easy reads that I was looking for. So it might have just been my headspace that made me really, really bounce off these ones. And I don't see a huge amount of benefit of, you know, talking about some books like this that a lot of people haven't heard of when I don't think I gave them a fair shot. So both of those books, I think I'm going to give a try a bit later on in the year when my reading's a bit more in the ascendant. But for now, there are 2 books I do want to talk about. The first of which is Columbus Day by Craig Allenson. It's the first of the Expeditionary Force series, which is a military sci-fi series, which I was hoping I would really get into. I was coming in with a couple problems. One, it's like infantry, not like spaceships and stuff, and like spaceships and fighter pilots and stuff. That's the military stuff I really like Air Force, Navy sort of things. Marines, Army, and whatnot. Those stories often don't really land very well with me, like I found out in Old Man's War. Just doesn't really connect with me. So I was coming in with a little bit of a disadvantage on this one. And then I got about 25% of the way through, I think, before I realized that I just wasn't really caring anymore. None of the characters jumped out to me as particularly likable. In fact, they came off as pretty unlikable. I found the like depictment of the military characters to be fairly generic and like a bit cliche, and what was actually going on just wasn't really interesting me. And for a book series that's got, I think, 19 books now, I just was looking ahead and just wasn't in the mood to keep going. So yeah, I put that one down. So that one gets a DNF from me. And the other book I DNF'd I have much more stronger thoughts on was Wingman by 𝕤𝕚𝕚𝕚. I have been into fighter planes recently. I've really been enjoying reading about them. I've been enjoying playing simulators and all that sort of stuff. I think it's because I'm old now. And so I really, really loved Raven 1 by Kevin Miller. And so another series people suggested was Wingman. And Wingman is set in this almost post-apocalyptic America. Things have broken down. There was a war a long time ago, just on the verge of winning. The vice president, I want to say, turned out to be a traitor and dismantled the military, destroyed most of the military equipment, and disbanded the United States, basically. And now we're in a world where there are several different factions in the United States, and we're following a fighter pilot as they sort of return to duty for an old squadron mate of theirs, and they are going to fly an F-16, but most of the squadron are just flying bits and pieces that they put together. All of that was fine. The characters were, again, not my jam. They weren't working for me, but I was interested enough to keep going until it really started to annoy me. Look, maybe this gets better later on in the book. Maybe it was just the mood I was in, but I found the depiction of like women in this book to be pretty poor for the parts that I read. I really don't like when both books and authors use like sexual assault and sexual violence as just like a way to show who the bad guys are. And we were absolutely doing that here. I gave up when basically we were sat down in a room and one person was telling another person why the bad guys were the bad guys. And they were being like, oh yeah, look, they've taken over this town and they've raped all the women and sold them into slavery and whatnot. Isn't that terrible? That's a bad thing. Women shouldn't be treated like this. And then the main character basically just gets given a woman right after that as like a reward for coming back to work. like 3 women walk in and like the other character's like, oh, go on, go have some fun. And then she just leaves with him immediately. Like, you spend all this time talking about how the bad guys are doing awful, awful things. And then just to flip it around and then treat women like this sort of object to be rewarded to our brave, heroic American soldier really felt gross to me. So I just put it down. Maybe it gets better later. Maybe I'm misreading it a bit, but for me, it just felt real gross, so I stopped. And yeah, so those are the 2 books I DNF'd that I want to talk about this week. What am I going to read in June? Luckily, I am currently reading a book that I am really interested in and I'm really enjoying, and that is Joe Abercrombie's The Devils. I'm loving every time I pick up this book right now. The issue is just kind of still in a slump, kind of just not picking it up as much as I should. I find myself reading 4 or 5 pages a day, whereas before I would be reading 30, 40, 50 pages a day, so just kind of working through that. Other than that, I still need to read Silver Nitrate, which is the book we picked last month out of the TBR jar. So no TBR jar today because I still need to get to that book. And really, I think even before that, I'm going to finish The Devils. I'm about 60% of the way through, so that hopefully won't take me too long. And then I need something quick, snappy, and good, you know? Like, I'm thinking like Murderbot Diaries, you know, they're quick books, they're snappy, they're fun, they're page turners, something to get a few quick, easy wins under my belt to get myself out of this mood. But there you go. If you've got any suggestions for books to help me get out of my slump, then please leave them in the description below. Apart from that, let me know what you read in May. I hope you had a better reading month than I did, and I really hope you're going to read something fun in June. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, just remember to keep reading. Ciao.